When it comes to retirement planning, few financial tools spark as much confusion or strong opinions as an annuity. Perhaps you are one of the 79% of Americans that don't even know what one really is. If you are, no worries. Stay tuned to find out. You're listening to Next Chapter Living, Planning Your Retirement Story with Steven Sabo. Steven is a financial advisor with Executive Financial Group, and you can learn more at executivefinancialgroup.com. Steven, the word annuity has a very strong connotation for some people. There is no gray area. It is very black and white. People love them or they hate them.
Yes, it is. It's one of those, it's the naughty industry word, right? And a lot of people stay away from saying it, or they try and get around it in some sort of cutesy way so that people don't catch on. And at the end of the day, look, annuities are just like anything else out there in this world. They are a tool to use in your finance, at least for me, in your financial plan. They're not going to be right for everybody. They're not going to be useful for everybody, but they can be a big part of a plan. And so, the way that I look at it is, hey, look, I'm ready to attack this. I'm ready to have the conversation about them because there are bad things, there are negative things, but you have to be upfront with people on what they are and how they work. And I find that that's the best way to get the point across for it.
It's so funny because you're exactly right. You hear some of these commercials or you see things online or hear things on the radio and it's like, oh, if you're interested in guaranteed lifetime income, and I'm like, it's an annuity. Just say that's what it is. But you're right. People avoid the word.
Yeah.
I was asking around friends and family to see, if people did know. I was certainly among the 79% that did not know exactly what an annuity was or how it worked. And then I asked my mother-in-law and it made me laugh. She's like, isn't that the one where they pay you if you win the lottery instead of taking the lump sum? It's the payout. So she knew what it was in that context. But I figure for those that don't understand it, let's start at the very beginning. In the most simple, basic form, what exactly is an annuity?
Well, an annuity is really, it's just a financial product that allows you to turn, say, a lump sum of money into an income stream, a stream of payments that maybe will be there for your lifetime. And so that's at its very simplest terms. And so you are correct about the lottery. You can take that option. So basically you're paid out a stream of income over life. That's simply, what it is. They're issued by insurance companies. Typically, most of them. There are other ones that may be issued by like a fraternal organization or something like that. But it's a financial product that turns a lump sum of money into a stream of payments. You give up X amount of dollars to an insurance company, and they're going to turn around and pay you that back over your lifetime so that you maybe can't outlive that stream of income. And so at its most basic, that's pretty much what an annuity is.
So it's a financial tool with a contractual agreement with an insurance company, not unlike financial tools that we have contractual agreements with banks, such as CDs, where we say, you're going to take X amount of money. I'm going to have it in a 3-year CD. There can be penalties for breaking that contractual agreement with a bank. I'm going to have a penalty if I withdraw early. The same is true for an annuity. If I say it's going to be one thing and then I'm changing it. And you can, obviously, you correct me if I'm wrong, but there can also be annuities that are just used for growth. We often hear the word annuity as only turning it into an income source with that lump sum of money. But there are options out there where we can use it as a growth vehicle, not unlike a CD where it's the lump sum of money, we put it in, and then we get it back out.
Sure. And, that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions about them is that somebody hears it and that they are, only used to turn on an income stream or to create a stream of income. And that's not the case. There are numerous different kinds of annuities out there, and each one kind of does something a little bit different. There are some that are like a CD, like you said, that pay you a fixed amount of interest over a certain period of time, a guaranteed period. And so there are annuities that turn a lump sum into an income stream. And then there are annuities that say, for instance, like a fixed indexed annuity, which is a product that would be used for that growth or for downside protection in a portfolio. And again, annuities are a tool, like I said, just like anything else, a stock, a bond, no matter what it is a tool and it has to be right for somebody. But there is a big misconception about them out there. And yes, there are ones that are very bad. Yes, there are ones that are very expensive. Yes, there are ones that don't allow you to get money. But unfortunately, I think that there is that noise out there because they have been used improperly. They've been sold by somebody improperly. They have been used without telling somebody all of the features or the downsides or the negatives to them. And, the way that I look at it is there's going to be downsides and negatives to everything out there in life, right? But if the upside outweighs the downside, then in my opinion, they especially if they're going to solve a problem for us, then they can be great, but you have to have the conversations. Unfortunately, most of the people that are using them or selling them don't know how they work. And so, that's a big problem. So, you have to be versed in them. You need to know a lot about them and you need to be willing to have the conversations and tell people, hey, look, there is a downside to this or there is a negative. If you needed all of this money out, well, there are things called surrender charges. They typically decline over time, but people need to know that. And so, but again, that goes back to the whole building of a financial plan. Too many people out there are strictly salespeople and all they want to do is sell you, whether it's an annuity or whether it's a security like a stock or a bond. All they want to do is sell it to you and then disappear. And each thing has a purpose. And so it needs to be used for that purpose.
And I imagine it's important to make sure you're sitting with somebody that has accessibility to various tools because, I sort of think of this analogy that if you're talking to somebody and all they have is a hammer, they're going to convince you that the hammer is the best tool for the job. It doesn't matter that they're, maybe installing fine art or a window. They're going to say the hammer is the best tool for it. Whereas somebody who has more tools may use something with a little more finesse in that situation.
That's a great analogy. And we use that all the time. And it's funny how the financial world works. I know that the word fiduciary is thrown around a lot. And that is simply, doing what's in the client's interest before your own. And so with an annuity, if all you can sell are annuities, you technically are not acting in a fiduciary capacity because at the end of the day, you're selling a product where at the same time, whenever you're using stocks and things like that, you're acting in a fiduciary capacity, but you still may be doing something that's going to benefit you more. And so we use all the tools at our disposal because like you said, you can't tell me that you're going to build a house and all you have is a saw.
Right.
Well, how's that going to, let me know how that's going to work. And so, people will fight tooth and nail and say they should never be used. And again, hey, they are not for everybody and they're used improperly a lot. They're sold improperly a lot, unfortunately, which has given them a bad name. And it's given people an opportunity to jump on them and say, look, this is why you shouldn't use it. But just like anything else, they're a tool. And, like you said, the more tools that you have at your disposal, the better job that you can do for a client. And so I'm not willing to write anything out until I know more about it. And so we know a lot about annuities, and that's because we think that they are an important tool for us to be able to use.
You said you had a list of some misconceptions you wanted to share. Will you dive into that?
Yeah, sure. And, one of them is the one that we kind of already talked about in the fact that an annuity is not always used for an income stream. Again, we use annuities a lot for almost it's like an allocation in your overall portfolio, right? So we would sometimes use them as a bond replacement almost, right? Because the old typical how people used to invest, there was
60-40 rule.
Stocks and bonds, right? Yeah. Okay. So if you wanted safety, you went towards bonds because typically they were safer than, equities where they're going to fluctuate. Well, 2022 was a perfect example of why that is not always the case. Right. We had very low interest rates. Then we have inflation. And in order to get inflation under control, you have to raise the interest rates. So whenever you're raising interest rates, that means bonds are falling because if you had something that's, paying 2% and you could get 5% and you wanted to get out of your 2%, well, you're going to have to sell it for a loss or a discount so that you can get out of it. Nobody wants to buy your 2% bond when they could get a 5%. And so what we saw in 2022 was not only were stocks and equities falling, but bonds were as well, because interest rates were rising during that period of time. So in my opinion, if you aren't looking at things like annuities as an alternative to those types of things, then you're missing the boat. As a bond alternative, as a way to grow safely, the fixed indexed annuities like we talked about, they might be tied to an index like the S&P 500, which allows for some upside growth that could be capped at a certain point.
Sure.
But on the downside, so if those indexes fall, the worst that can happen for you is there's a floor of 0 normally. Now, variable annuities are different, and those are typically what are associated with things like fees. So another kind of misconception is that annuities are loaded with fees. Well, that's not always the case. Again, an income annuity, there's really not a fee to it. The fee is built in the payout, right? So you can say there's a fee in the fact that they took your lump sum of money and they're going to pay it out over time. And so maybe you're only getting a certain interest rate or something like that, but there's not an actual fee coming out of it, say like a variable annuity, which might have, a lot of different fees into it. So that's another one, is that, all annuities they have fees and they're very expensive. Well, that's not the case. Let's see what else I have. Oh, you can create your own personal pension. So again, the payout over time, if you get a pension option right from your company and they say, okay, here are the options, but one of them is a lump sum of money. Well, we might take a look at that and say, hey, you could take that lump sum of money. And so say you didn't need all of that income that they were offering you. Well, we could take a portion of that lump sum of money, turn it into quote unquote, that pension for you, that income stream for you, and then do something with the rest of it.
One of the ones that came to mind for me on it was that, and I think it's probably more the old school annuities, but say I have my $100,000 and I put it in an annuity because I want the income stream, and I only live for 6 months after I put that money in. Now the rest of that money is gone and I've quote unquote lost my money.
Yeah, that's another great one. So back to the pensions at a company, typically that's how those work. So if you select one of those options from your pension, from your company, and say it's, okay, I'm going to take the reduced benefit, or I'm going to take the full life, right? And I select that. And in, like you said, 6 months you pass away and it's gone. Well, that's true. But in an annuity outside, you have beneficiary designations. So say you turn that on and you pass away 6 months. If there's still money left in the account, in the accumulation value of the account, that can go on to whoever your beneficiary is. It's not just gone. So, another big misconception on how they work.
Well, as we've heard, annuities are not a one-size-fits-all, but with the right guidance, they can play a role in your retirement. And if you're ready to explore whether or not they make sense for your individual situation, you can reach out to Steven today for a complimentary consultation. You can do so by heading on over to executivefinancialgroup.com, clicking the Contact Us button. Again, that's executivefinancialgroup.com. You can also follow Executive Financial Group on YouTube and Facebook. And of course, we would love it if you subscribed wherever you're currently listening so that you never miss an episode. Steven, as always, I appreciate your time and your talents and talking us through it.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you walking us through this and bringing up some really great points there. I love having these conversations. I'm not going to make you a financial advisor overnight, but if I can clear up some of the noise or the misinformation or whatever you've been hearing from whatever source you're getting it from out there, I really love doing this. And so, it's important to me that people know what is out there and how things are used, and, just being upfront and transparent about it all, I think is the best way to go. So.
Of course. I always try to ask questions to help people realize that they're not the only ones with questions.
That's
I do not know the answers to these things.
So many people are afraid to ask something because they feel like, I'm going to look weird that, maybe I don't know this. And hey, if I go to the doctor, I'm asking every single question I can because I want to know about what's going on. Or if I'm getting my car worked on,
Right.
wait, was this something I did? Or is it just, hey, it's wear and tear or whatever? So, these questions are important, and you're not going to look silly asking them to me. I want to answer them for you. And so I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to answer them.
Of course. As always, it's a pleasure. And again, that website, if you're looking to start your own conversation, is executivefinancialgroup.com. We'll see you next time.
The opinions expressed by Steven Sabo and guests on this podcast are their own and do not reflect the opinions of this podcast station. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Any strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to subject covered. Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, a registered investment advisor. VCM and Executive Financial Group are independent of each other. Pennsylvania Insurance License number 670429. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract. Steven Sabo and/or Executive Financial Group are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.